All right, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Love. I'm your host, Taylor, and this is the final interview in the series that I'm doing where I am interviewing I actually have the last coach here, all coaches that are part of or running together, co-creating the coaching collaborative called Creative Self-Mastery. And with me today in this episode is Nikki, and I would like to introduce her first, like I've been doing with the rest of the coaches, in terms of how I've been relating to her. So I met Nikki virtually, indirectly last year in a WhatsApp thread in a group chat that had to do with Creative Self Mastery's membership program called the Inner Circle. And I did never directly actually had anything to do with her, but she shared some things in the chat that we're probably going to get into here that were very insightful for me, and they were just so authentic and real. And she was showing up so powerfully that I don't even think she knows it now, but it made an impact on me for sure. And then I've gotten to speak to Nikki in the past couple of weeks for the first time one-on-one, and that's pretty much how I'm relating to her. I think she's a very powerful, fantastic woman, and I'm really looking forward to diving in here with you all listening into having this conversation with her. So without further ado, welcome, Nikki. Thank you for being here. Would you please introduce yourself in your own words for our listeners today?
Well, first of all, Taylor, I want to say really thank you to you. This has been a really great initiative. And by the way, I think you're also really awesome and powerful for having, brought us all in to do this, because this is something pretty creative and I appreciate it. So I'm Nikki, and I'm a CSM, a creative self-mastery coach and hypnotherapist. And I've got a bit of a passion for all things creative, in fact, coming from more of a creative graphic design background, and then converting years ago to more of a therapy coaching environment. So I'm bringing those kind of creative passions into my coaching too. So yes, that's me.
Amazing. Thank you for introducing yourself. So there's one question that I'm asking all the coaches, and that is, how would you define creative self-mastery? So is it like a lifestyle, a set of tools, a methodology? What is it for you, but for you personally?
Well, for me personally, creative self-mastery is all about having a certain mindset, kind of a certain awareness for, where the ego sometimes trips you up in life, and not giving it the power and focusing more on your creative potential to create your life, to have the kinds of experiences that you want to have, despite how the ego shows up sometimes. So it's a mindset where you're conscious of yourself so that you can show up more powerfully in life.
Amazing. So more of a mindset. That's a first actually in this series. So it's a way of thinking about yourself and your internal world is what I just heard.
Yeah, exactly. Just shining a bit of a mirror back on yourself, and then thinking, okay, so this is where, I have a tendency to go, but I want to go in this direction, and then shifting the focus towards a different direction, and actually being a bit more playful and curious about what kinds of experiences you want to have, and focusing more on those. Yeah, and having that mindset, being playful and creative at the expense of sometimes the stories that our ego wants to create for us.
Awesome. So Nikki, what actually led you to creative self-mastery?
What led me to creative self-mastery? Well, in the spirit of being entirely, honest and authentic, I was living in Paris. I'd already moved to France. I live in France, and I had moved to Paris, and I was working as a graphic designer. It wasn't really what I wanted to do, and I felt a bit lost. I've always been someone who's very ambitious and believed there's something more to this world, than just to do the 9 to 5. But I didn't really know how to get there. I knew it was possible, but I didn't know how to get there. And so I have a very good friend who had been coaching with Mark. And she had mentioned to me a couple of times in the past that she had found this work really, really useful, really powerful. And so she was encouraging me to go and kind of look into it myself. And so at that point, I kind of hit a bit of a hard place. I had fallen over with back pain, like agonizing back pain in my kitchen onto the cold floor. Got this really nice image, right? Talk about, things young in life. It's like everything. It felt I was unemployed. I had been made redundant a year before, and I didn't want to just go back into the same thing. I could have easily just found another job, doing exactly what I had done before, but I knew that didn't feel right. I just knew it didn't. And so, but I couldn't see any other option my way because, I had blinkers the same as, many people do. And I was just kept on seeing this one way, which didn't feel right to me. And one day I just, I was kind of perhaps entering into some kind of very small depression. And I had a backache and I just fell to the floor. And I spent 2 days kind of bedbound. And for me, that was it. That was really my moment of thinking something's got to change. Something's got to change, and whatever it is that I'm doing right now, it's not working. So I've got to do something different. And so then I contacted Mark, and so began my CSM journey.
Wow. Okay. So obviously you injured yourself and you probably saw like medical doctors around that, but this thing that happened to you, you thought of like something's got to change in my personal development. Where's the connection between that?
Well, let me just introduce you to the weird and wonderful way my mind works. So I knew that it was just a symptom of something far bigger. I knew I wasn't in a good place at that point. And so the back pain, I'd had it intermittently throughout the whole of my life. I'm quite tall and, obviously people slouch, as is the way in the 21st century. So I knew that wasn't really a major problem. It was just that I needed to put my focus on something else and get my life back on track. And then I knew that then chances of finding myself crumpled on the cold, hard floor probably wouldn't happen again anytime soon.
Okay.
So therefore I kind of sought out Mark. Yeah.
Amazing. So, all right. So we've learned, how you got into creative self-mastery. And so what would you say, I'm assuming that it wasn't the back injury. What was like the biggest change or the biggest thing that you've gone through since joining creative self-mastery?
Oh, well, I have to say the biggest change comes from within. I identified with Mark when I started working with him that I had a pretty debilitating capacity belief, i.e., I didn't really feel like I was a capable person. I didn't have issues so much with kind of self-worth, or significance. It was more that I just didn't really feel like I was very capable. I wanted to do things and I wanted to achieve things, but, one of my beliefs that, was revealed to me, and it was revealed to me in a big way, was that I didn't really feel like I was, at the end of the day, capable of creating what I wanted to. And so naturally, then I would complete the vicious circle. If I didn't believe that I was capable, then I would no doubt take action to prove that. And so that's probably been my biggest change because, the person who I was when I started doing this work, I know that I'm just totally unrecognizable. My thoughts are entirely unrecognizable to those which I had before. And I feel very capable. I feel very, very capable. Of course, there are always days when you don't, because we're humans, we're not supposed to be, Buddha. But, for a majority of the time, I feel highly capable, and that's where I put my power. And so for me, that's been the biggest change, really, just going from that person I feel sorry for, the old me. I really feel for her, and feeling who I am today. It's like day and night.
Yeah. Maybe for our listeners, you could define what a capacity belief is. So you brought up beliefs, and maybe someone out there is listening. They might be like, what's that?" So what is a
Yeah.
capacity belief?
Sure. So capacity belief is basically when somebody feels they don't have the capacity to do what they want to, right? I.e., they feel incapable of doing, achieving what they want to in life. And it's not always really obvious. For me, I spent my whole life up until that point not even realizing it. All I knew was that, for example, I would hear myself say the words quite often, "I can't do that. Oh, I couldn't do that." These are little indicators of what's going on in your subconscious. The words that we use are highly indicative of the way we think. So I knew that I would say, "Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Oh, I couldn't do that." And I would perhaps hide away from challenges that I deep down thought that I wasn't capable of surmounting. And so it's just basically, yeah, this kind of insidious feeling, belief that controls all of your actions, that say to you, "You can't do this. You can't do this. Don't try. Don't try." Because if you try, then you'll just feel bad because you won't be able to do it. And so then you end up not really going anywhere because you're scared of proving to yourself that you're incapable. But being the self-fulfilling prophecy that it is, you end up proving exactly that you are incapable. Is that clearer?
Oh, wow. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
It was clear to me also the first time around, but I know that I'm in this creative self-mastery game for a while. So, but
Yeah.
but it must have been, also I'm speaking a little bit from my own experience. It's not easy. It's not easy to see the truth about where our actions are originating from and how we play a role in creating our circumstances. How has that been for you?
Oh, 100%. There's this saying that, the goldfish doesn't know it's in a gold fish bowl, right? It's only when you're to step away, you're able to take an external perspective on something, that you're able to see it for what it is. That's why it's so easy, really, to give advice and coach other people, far more so than it is to be able to do that yourself. And that's why, any decent coach has got a coach. Because it's easy to look at somebody else and see what's going on for them, but it's much more difficult to see what's going on for you. And so, yeah, as I said, I had no awareness at all. And I've kind of always identified as someone that's, been kind of a bit more introspective. I've listened to my intuition, for a large part of my life. So I wasn't somebody that was entirely cut off to these kind of ideas and these concepts. But at the same time, 100%, I was not aware of the beliefs that we form when we're very young, and how much of an impact they were having on me. And it's the same for everybody. It's difficult because the ego is so clever in kind of disguising it. And also, what also blocks people in many ways is this willingness to take responsibility for themselves. That's one of the things that I notice when I'm talking to perhaps clients or my students, because I also teach, is that sometimes people don't want to see the truth.
Yeah.
It's all very well and good saying, I want to change, but sometimes, really owning up to your shit is painful. And people don't want to do it. And so, we've got a few things going against us when we're really trying to step this path, but it's worth it.
Yeah. And so you're the last out of 6 people that I've been doing these interviews with, and what I've noticed across the board is every one of you really have your own unique background of where you're coming from. And you brought up the childhood, and I really like this about creative self-mastery because you're very authentic, you're honest about like, hey, I don't come from, like, everyone has their own level of privilege, right? But all of us have our own kind of shit bowls that we had to eat out of. But despite that, we're like, no, we're going to take responsibility. So would you like to share a little bit about, where you're coming from in terms of where you did form these beliefs and how you're recreating yourself from that?
Yeah, sure. What, a little bit about my past and how it might have created my beliefs? Sure. So, I'm actually very lucky, really, in the world. I come from, I've got a family who love me. Hence the reason why I probably don't have too many issues around self-love or self-worth. But it's kind of also quite a sign of the generation which I was brought up in, that perhaps the men did more than the women, and in terms of, go to work and things like that, women's work perhaps less valued than men's. And so I've kind of always been brought up with the stereotype that maybe men are more capable, especially as my dad, because he loves me very much, always wanted to do things for me. So, for a young child, it kind of teaches me that I need to rely on a man to do things. And so that's I believe anyway, perhaps what has created my capacity belief, this inherent belief that I'm incapable, and which gave it a lot of power. And so, yeah, it was just about recognizing that side of me and realizing that it's all bullshit. It's all stories. It's all just a whole bunch of inaccurate stories that I chose to believe in when I didn't know any better, because it is, I'm very capable, and anybody listening to this who might be, with whom my words might be resonating, they are no doubt far more capable than they think, but because we like to just believe in the stories, we believe in the stories we tell ourselves, then sometimes we don't allow ourselves to believe in other things. So, yeah.
And so where are you at now in terms of capability? What are all the things that you're doing where you're totally proving these stories wrong?
Oh God, what a good question. So I moved to France, let's just say. So this was before I actually started to CSM, but I moved to France by myself. And as I said, I kind of got to a point where I was a little bit stuck. Then I spent a good bit of time working on myself with CSM principles. And over time, I have managed to entirely change my career to something that I feel highly passionate about. Not only that, but I teach in universities. And for someone who previously thought was very incapable to be a university lecturer, essentially, and to have, master's students and MBA students listening to my words, and telling me, and giving me feedback that they found what I've done, what I've, been teaching them insightful. That is a huge amount of evidence for me to hold on to, to prove how entirely capable I am. And as I said, I kind of did all of this by myself. I'm in a relationship now, but for a huge part, well, most of the 9 years that I've been in France, I was by myself, and I underestimated that. I realized that I underestimated that, because it's not always easy being an expat, and this. We've discussed this as well. It's not easy. It's not like when you're living in the country that you know the most. There are many challenges, everyday challenges that you don't have in your own, in your home country. And so just the fact that I moved to Aix-en-Provence, which was always a dream of mine, moving somewhere and being able to keep my life here as well, and also I live in a beautiful place. Just the fact that I feel as well on a very regular basis. I'm not going to lie, it's not every day, but on a very regular basis, I feel quite powerful, and I don't mean that in like I hope that doesn't come across in the arrogant sense, but I feel, it's really the internal kind of reality that I have. And that's how I know that I've absolutely just kicked this belief, out of the window that I'm incapable, because that's just waking up and feeling that. And when people offer me opportunities, when I was offered this opportunity to work at university, I thought to myself, it kicked up all the old shit. How could I possibly do that? They'll realize that I'm just a big phony, and but here I am doing it, and I don't think anything of it now. I don't think anything of it. In fact, I really enjoy it. I see the value I'm able to give people, and I get good feedback, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I think that is testament as well. There's no more psychological tension around doing these things. And of course, then I've just got I've got some good ambitions and good, and really exciting plans for the future as well. I've got a partnership coming up with a local language school who, I'll be going in to give mindset workshops. Again, no psychological tension. I feel really good about them. And that for me, I think is probably the biggest testament. Just feeling good about something that I think before would have created quite a lot of psychological tension.
Wow. And something that I think I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you didn't give the power to that inner critic, or what a lot of people would call imposter syndrome. And you just went with it anyways. And that actually, because of that, it sounds like that just fell away. Instead of placing your focus on that, you focused on, I don't know, what you wanted to create, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's all stories anyway. Who's to say that I clearly just proved that I am I wasn't an imposter, because people enjoy what I'm teaching, they get value from it. So I'm clearly not an imposter. So the story that I had before, temporarily, that I was an imposter, it's just a story. It's just a story, that's been driven by our fears, trying to keep us small and safe. And that's exactly it. If you want to give the power to that little voice, then yeah, you're going to end up proving it to be correct. But I have been already doing this work for long enough to not give the power to that inner critic. And so if anything, I know that if something terrifies me, I pretty much have to do it. I have to do it. I have this other opportunity which I can't really discuss, but it scares the hell out of me. Even now, it scares the hell out of me. Do you know what when somebody offered it to me, they said, if you're going to do this, you need to be 100% in it. And I said, I'm 100%, 150% involved. I feel terrified by the idea, but all the more reason to do it, because I've got to. Because
Wow.
that's how it's that's the direction I want to go in, right? I want to progress, and I want to improve, and I want to create a life full of different and varied experiences. And so if that's really what I want to, if that's what I preach for the people, and that's what I want to create for myself, then what kind of experiences would I be creating if I just shied away all the time from those that were a little bit scary?
Yeah.
So,
and that's another typical aspect of creative self-mastery, because out in the world in personal development, we see people are like, I want to be better. I want to like perform more. And it's a very much outward orientation to what it means to actually like develop. Right. And so what I just heard you say is you're like, I want to have the varied experiences in my life. And it sounds like that's coming from within you and not without you.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, because I feel like I know how I felt before, and I know how I feel now. And so I kind of felt the full scope of one experience, feeling very incapable, now feeling very capable. And so that's just one experience. Now I'm aware that there's a whole world of experiences, and I might be feeling still on one end of the spectrum. So I want to be able to experience the other side of the spectrum for that particular experience. Does that make sense? I feel like it might not.
No, it totally does, especially when we see a different perspective of ourselves. Like if you're living your whole life incapable, and then suddenly you realize, holy shit, I'm really capable. There's so much more possibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, it's not even just about creating positive experiences. It's about being able to better handle negative experiences, because this is life. Life's not always going to be, sunshine and roses. And so, it's about being able to think, well, something really rubbish is happening in my life. What do I want to experience here? And I can be more specific. So my most recent example of this is, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the end of, about August last year. And yeah, of course, it was shocking. I initially went into my shit, because that's normal. I am, human. But it very quickly became a question of, okay, all right, so this is my situation. What can I do in this situation to make it easier for me to to have a better experience with it, but B, how about I take it even further? What would I like to experience from this cancer, essentially, and I kind of have this goal, really, or end result, that I wanted to come out better off after the cancer than I did going into it. And so I put a lot of my focus on that, as opposed to, the treatment, the emotion and the hormones and the the stress of, dealing other people's emotions as well, because that's a huge part of cancer that I didn't really hear about much before. I was able to just put my focus on that. And so, throughout every single experience, I was like, okay, how do I want to show up really in this scenario? And I really do feel, I went back to work a few weeks ago, and clearly I'm perfectly fine already. And I feel like I have definitely come out of it better off than when I went into it. I've got, as I said, career opportunities that have opened up to me. I feel like I can obviously be a lot more in service to a certain type of person that I wouldn't have been able to before. Obviously, people who have suffered cancer, had cancer diagnosis. And so, it's really about also just being able to create a better experience for yourself, even when faced with, life events.
Yeah, wow. Wow, thanks for sharing that. That's yeah, I mean, I grew up and I've known my friend in my friend circle, and also personally my mom had breast cancer, and it was just just such a different experience than what you describe. And I think that's like really, I'm like in awe. So that's creative self-mastery.
Well, it did definitely take some self-mastery in certain moments. Some people would say, with all good intentions, I've got a friend who's been through this, and perhaps you want to speak to them. And I'd be like, how are they dealing with it? And it would be, well, it's not great. And I'm just, as a part of it, my own kind of self-preservation as well, I was like, okay, well, maybe I won't speak to that person because I don't want to just, share my misery with somebody. I want to be able to, be around other people that are able to have choose a better experience too. And so, there were certain times when it definitely did require some self-mastery. But the interesting thing is also then knowing when it's okay not to be mastered, because, honestly, we're all just trying to get through life, right? We're trying to do the best we can. We're all trying to do the best we can and have some good times on the way. And sometimes, especially doing this work, I've definitely put pressure on myself. Oh, I should be more, fill in the gap. Should be more mastered. I should be more blah, blah, blah. And so that was one thing that actually the cancer diagnosis kind of forced me to look at a little bit more as well. It's like, well, yeah, I do need to be, I want to be mastered in this situation, because I want to pay more attention to my internal world, because I want to be, I want to have a certain experience in this moment. And also, cancer affects family members and friends. And I kind of want to create as much as I can a good experience for them too, although it's not my responsibility. But then sometimes it becomes a question of, when is it just okay then to just have a rubbish day, just to be totally in your shit, because that's okay too. That's okay too. And that doesn't make, me or anybody else any less of, a coach or a leader. It's just okay to be human sometimes. So it's been an interesting balance kind of throughout, kind of reconciling the two.
But I'm really glad you share about that, because the other coaches have been on here when, we have Tiff, whose mom just passed a month ago, and she talked about that, and Stanley with his mom on her way out of life, and then her drug addiction. And so there's all these like really tough things that all of you have been dealing with, but you have been holding the balance between like, okay, loving yourself and giving yourself your human moments, but also remembering, oh yeah, but I'm actually creating myself as a leader, and I'm creating certain experiences, and you keep on it. And this has been just so amazing for me to get to learn and talk about with all of you.
Yeah. Well, it's a really important point, because it's so easy for people to think that life is black and white, either you are mastered or you're not. Either I am, an artist or I'm not. Either I am a coach or I'm not. Either I am whatever or I'm not. And the truth is, it's never that. There's gray scale, there's gray areas. And sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. It doesn't mean the whole of as a totality that you're not, just because there are off days, because we have off days, and so yeah, it's important to recognize that people can be totally imperfect, but it doesn't take away from their overall identity, whatever it is that they're trying to create.
Yeah. So Nikki, we're heading towards the end here. There is a workshop coming up. Creative Self Mastery is doing a live workshop in London, and I mean this should air before then, but even if it doesn't, it's good to talk about it. And the workshop's called Sexual Self Mastery. And so if you're game, I'd like to ask you, what is sexual self mastery for you, and what are you looking most forward to about this workshop?
Yeah, what am I most looking forward to, and what does it mean to me? Sexual self-mastery is essentially the same principles that we teach in creative self-mastery, but applied in the bedroom. We say how you are in one environment is very similar to how you often are in another environment. And so if you want to feel, that you can express yourself authentically in perhaps your work life, or your, in family life, and also work doesn't even have to be like the bureau, the office. It can be, just school, or how you deal with your family. This is being a leader. When you have people who look up to you and they look to you for guidance, then you're as much a leader and can apply these principles as any kind of CEO, if you like. And so it's about using these principles for leadership and self-reliancy, and being able to communicate effectively so that other people can join you in, this kind of functional situation, and then being able to apply those in the bedroom too, because quite often it's an area full of shame and guilt and huge amounts of psychological tension, which again, all stories, thanks society, just so much kind of like, no, we mustn't talk about sex, we mustn't talk about the bedroom. It's just really, I'm respectable, when in reality, it's a very normal adult function. And so we just don't need to have any stories around it that create any tension, and yet there is a lot. So it's just about applying, for me, sexual self-mastery is about applying kind of coaching principles that we would teach anyone in their life, but being able to apply them as well in the bedroom. And then you would have benefits, there would be positive consequences for both sides, in the bedroom, and then also in the rest of your life. And what am I looking forward to most about it? Actually, I'm really looking forward to spending some time with the other coaches and the participants, because let's face it, this is not going to be a stuffy, boring workshop, right? There's going to be a lot of scope for giggles and experimentation and play, not clearly physical experimentation, but playfulness, and just seeing what comes up, for the coaches too, because don't think that the coaches didn't have tension around this workshop, because we all did, so we've had to kind of look at ourselves as well in the face of this. And I think I'm looking forward to just seeing what comes up for all of the people who are in the room, but I know that it's going to be fun. It's going to be playful, and I enjoy, being around the other coaches, and I enjoy being in the learning environment. So being with participants. So that's really what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really love how you've described it. Obviously, I'm going to be a participant there, and I've just by doing these conversations with you guys, I've learned so much more about what I've gotten a chance now, and hopefully the people who are listening to this for future workshops and future sexual self-mastery happenings to understand what is this really about. And so I like that you pointed out that it's not about the physical act of having sex like at the workshop. And it's more about, you know, really stretching our comfort zone and unshaming all of these stories we're telling about ourselves and using this, this sort of really sensitive area, sex, to have a look at these, you know, like what we've been talking about, maybe these core beliefs that we have that are blocking us from having these experiences that we really want to have. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I think exactly what you just said there, Taylor. It's about changing the stories we have around something. That we've got these outdated stories, as many people, and I do as well, and we all do have quite a lot of outdated stories still. And it's about perhaps reframing them and thinking, what other stories can we create about this so that we can have a better experience, you know, in the bedroom and outside.
Amazing. So, Nikki, I'd like to give you a chance to let our listeners know how they can contact you and in what capacity.
Sure. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. My name's Nicky Peters. You'll find me. Yes. I don't suppose there are too many Nicky Peters in south of France that are hypnotherapists. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. If not, Nikki at creativeselfmastery.com is my email address. And I check out my emails on a regular basis. And yeah, just even if people just want to, I don't know, they've got something interesting they want to say, or they have some, I don't know, they're a little bit stuck somewhere. And they want to just discuss it. I'm happy to like open up a conversation and actually just, you know, just to get it out in the open. It doesn't have to be anything committal, you know. And so yeah, I'd love to just hear from anybody who's perhaps, you know, as I said, my words have resonated with them in some capacity, but also maybe if they're just, you know, wanting some ideas to be more playful in their life and give more power to their creative tension and yeah, create more powerfully in their lives.
Yeah, amazing. So, as a tradition now, on this last episode, what is one thing, you know, whether it be from this conversation, or from somewhere else, what is one thing you would leave, you know, like the listeners to hear today or to be walking away with?
Okay, one thing that I feel would be that I'd like people to walk away with is to recognize the importance of the imagination. You know, be playful. Use your playfulness and your imagination to actively, consciously create your life, because the temptation is to just go through life passively, responding to events that happen to us, when in actual fact, we are so much more powerful than we think we are. And if we use our imagination quite a lot of the time, and of course our intuition, I mean, our intuition often speaks to us through our imagination, particularly for those of us who are very visual. And if we use that actively and consciously to create our lives, we can just live interesting lives. You know, who wouldn't want to live a more playful, interesting, varied, fun life? You know, so that would be my one thing, just appreciating how we can use the imagination to create more actively and more creatively our lives. Imaginatively, there you go. That's a better word. Create more actively and imaginatively our lives.
Awesome. So yeah, I can only say again, thank you so much for your time and your presence and you know, bringing all of this wisdom to us here today, Nikki. It was really a pleasure. And yeah, for those of you listening, I'll catch you next time. Nikki, if you have any last words, you can go ahead and say them.
Well, just as I said, just a kind of just a repetition of what I said at the beginning. Just a real big thanks to you, Taylor, because this is a really great initiative, and you've given me an experience here because I've never done a podcast before. So,
All right.
to you, thank you to you for giving me my first podcast experience, which has been a fantastic experience. So, just a big thanks to you, and I hope that I hope that my words have resonated. Definitely been in service to anybody who needs to hear them.
Oh, no doubt about it. All right, I'm gonna hit stop and see you all next time.